Let's unravel Geeta's world. Hello, everyone. This is the 85th episode of Geeta's World. And Geeta is all here. Very, very congratulations, first of all. I just wanted to meet you in person and then congratulate you for your ENBA.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It means a lot when we see appreciation of work. But it's interesting because, the ENBA was for Prime Minister's US visit.
Yeah.
And a lot of them would be like, there's so many other important events that also took place. But the fact is that why did India Today get it? And I'd like to believe, that it's because of our wholesome coverage. While we speak about the first visit of Prime Minister Modi, first state visit of Prime Minister Modi, a historic event, a lot of achievements, Anna, we also put the right questions to the right people. A lot of people might not like those questions, but we put the question to Elon Musk on Twitter, muzzling in India, or muzzling of Twitter in India. We put the questions to Congressman Jaipal, who's a critic of India. We also had a lot of hues and color from the Indian diaspora, but there were some from the Manipuri community, where a professor from Manipur actually raised concerns regarding the situation back home. So when you have a wholesome coverage, it is appreciated more than just talking about one aspect, and that's the Prime Minister's visit alone. There are many layers to diplomacy, and I suppose we covered all those aspects, and for that, I'm thankful for the appreciation.
Yeah, very much deserve it. And that's what we try to do from your experiences. Try to capture that in our podcast, which is called Geeta's World. It's your world. By the way, to all our listeners and viewers, a small announcement. That is just not Geeta Mohan winning ENBA. So the other podcast that we do, which is called Nothing But the Truth, is hosted by a veteran journalist, a senior journalist, Raj Chingappa. And he has won actually multiple awards. First, it was the Ramnath Goenka for his
feature story.
Feature story.
But then he won another one for the podcast Nothing But the Truth, and then the ENBA for Nothing But the Truth.
Yes. It was called the Vanifra Award for Best Podcast, and this is also for the best podcast. So I'll add the podcast link to the show notes so that you can check it out. So Geeta, coming to what we do here, discuss foreign affairs. Lots happening actually. So this time, I think there was this also important development in Turkey. We have discussed Turkey so much in the recent election, the elections at that point of time when Erdogan won, and now it's the opposition, which is
and that's why they say never think that one leader, no matter what the stronghold is, will continue forever, that there can be change. And this did come as a surprise, but there is a groundswell of support for the opposition in many ways. And these are mayoral elections, but yet we've seen Erdogan taking a massive hit.
That's true.
Massive hit.
Yeah. And another important development that we'll be discussing this week is a similar sort of India Out campaign after Maldives that we are witnessing in one of our neighbors, which is Bangladesh. And we thought that it was very important for us to discuss. I think there's a stark difference between the two countries, because in Maldives there was the ruling government, as in like Moitsu drove that anti-India sentiment.
He was the opposition when he did that.
Yes, and he won the presidency. But here, Sheikh Hasina just recently in January, she won the elections, and we discussed that.
That's because the opposition still tried the India Out campaign. So the story remains the same. It's just that there was no toppling of the government, and we know why. That is because the opposition boycotted the elections.
Yes. So the boycott, as I was reading, I think in January, February, just right after the elections were declared, and Sheikh Hasina got like a massive, secured a massive fourth term for herself. But the reports started pouring in about India Out right after January. So if you see, what I read was the BNP, they were asking the shopkeepers to, boycott groceries. And now what has happened is that Saree, the Indian attire, uh, it has been started, being politicized. And it actually started when BNP leader, his name is Ruhul Kabir Rizvi, he publicly threw away a shawl saying that, it's
A Kashmiri
Kashmiri shawl. And then Sheikh Hasina retorted, saying that, I have written her quote, which is very interesting. She said that the BNP must answer if they can eat without Indian spices. I want to know if they have truly boycotted Indian products. And my question is, how many Indian saris do the boycott campaigners' wives possess? Why don't they take the saris from their wives and burn them? And she also said that when the BNP was in power, I had seen wives of their leaders flying to India in groups to buy Indian saris. And then they would sell those saris in Bangladesh. So that was actually very important. And just to be reminded that India is a significant exporter to Bangladesh, with annual trade historically exceeding $12 billion. And Bangladesh also relies on India for essential commodities. So let's just try to understand this sentiment, how this sentiment is going to, what are the implications basically, it will have for the ordinary citizens of Bangladesh, given their reliance on Indian goods, and how might this affect India-Bangladesh relations as well?
Okay. Let's start with the basis of the story.
Yeah.
For both the Maldives and and Bangladesh, what we've seen in the recent past is that the opposition going very close to China, and this proximity to Beijing is one of the reasons why they feel the need to, whether there is or there isn't is a different matter, because we'll talk about that. They feel the need to isolate India in a manner that you have to be out, and only then will that country flourish. In the Maldives, in fact, before Muizu administration, the MDP was working with both the countries. It was not like they were choosing one against the other.
Yeah.
The choosing one against the other happens in the neighborhood when it comes to India and Pakistan, not India and China. When it comes to India and China, they try to balance relations. India might have problems with China, but they never question the other country in engaging China. We might be troubled with the kind of engagement if it goes into defense and military, or if it is too well entrenched within the economy of that country. China, again, would not question the country, but yes, would try to push its way into many projects that could make India uncomfortable. But that's the equation. So more or less, an opposition party that has not been very close to India tries to use that card, which is what happened in the Maldives. And you saw Muizu come to power.
Yeah.
And Muizu, after coming to power, and has made so many statements which are anti-India, has cut so many deals, signed so many deals with China. But at the end of the day, when it came to the debt relief,
Yeah.
he's again looking to New Delhi.
Yeah.
On the other hand, Bangladesh is another story where again the opposition is trying to. Now, the opposition has used India out after the elections is because they had boycotted the elections. They did not want the elections to be carried out the way they wanted a caretaker, and Sheikh Hasina refused because it is not absolutely essential or as per rule. It was just a norm that they used to have, like Pakistan does. And so she did not agree with the opposition. And the opposition again boycotted the elections, which has not gone down well for Sheikh Hasina, at least in the West, where you see a lot of criticism from the United States of America, calling her an autocrat, so on and so forth. But when it comes to the equation with India, BNP has by and large been quite anti-India, and now it is quite prominently visible. Sheikh Hasina has been very pro-India, but also balances her ties with China, because Bangladesh has grown leaps and bounds when it comes to its economy only because of the way they've engaged China, the way they've engaged the West, how it has become a textile hub. So over here, the BNP very clearly has come out with this India Out campaign. And the India Out campaign is them trying to replicate what happened in the Maldives, but not to much success, because Sheikh Hasina is right in those questions that she's posed, which you just quoted, Anna, which is, how are you going to cook your food without Indian spices?
Of course.
And if you do not want the Indian attire, then ask your wives first to throw out the Indian saris. Now, sari is not an Indian attire.
Yeah.
It is a Bangladeshi attire as well. Dhakai saris, Dhakai textiles and things that are made. So we wear similar things. What this asking them to throw away is the Indian-made saris, the saris that they buy from India, the jamdanis from West Bengal, so on and so forth. But it does not mean that there's a difference. Sari might not be a huge symbol for people in Pakistan, but for Bangladesh and India, women do wear saris.
And just a quick question, that, like I said in the beginning, that such reports of India Out campaign in Bangladesh, it started pouring in right after the election. So why did it gain momentum just now? Like, it's been almost around like 2 months? Or like, can you say that the Awami League government didn't really appear that concerned, over this campaign initially? And then later on, it just picked up, and Hasina actually thought of retorting back.
Right. I think it has come to light, Anna, now, because when somebody makes a dramatic statement out of a dramatic political statement out of an issue, that's when it gains traction. So up until now, they were talking about India out, but till the BNP leader Ruhul Rizvi did not really come out and throw that shawl or burn that shawl, it did not resonate. I think it has now become a huge news is because it resonated with the action and therefore the reaction from none other than the Prime Minister herself.
Got it, yeah.
But if it were the campaign itself, they were doing that for a while. Even in the Maldives, Anna, the India Out campaign or Boycott India was going on for a while.
Yeah.
But it gained traction when they had those red T-shirts that they were wearing and all of that, that big rally that they carried out.
Yes.
That's when it started gaining traction, when the Muzu camp started doing that. Otherwise, they were trying to push this idea and this agenda forward for a while. I think over here also they've been trying to do it, but now it has gained traction. Also, it does not gain traction as much in Bangladesh as it would in the Maldives is because in Bangladesh you will not have many people who are anti-India per se.
No, also, I mean, at that point in Maldives, that was the election year, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, here, had it been before January, I mean, it was obviously there, but it was lying a bit dormant because the leaders were jailed anyway.
Yes.
So that protest was not happening right, with full majority. And
Yes, and there was no drama to the whole thing. There was no traction, no way of pulling crowds in. Now, since they're here, they're there, and they want to continue their protest, they want to keep lodging this protest against India. You have the Boycott India and the India Out campaign.
Yeah. And what about the mood of the country, like the common people, if you ask? Because while I read, there were some observants who said that the common people of Bangladesh do not support this campaign because they know that the ruling party, the Awami League, will never work against the interest of the people. But on the other hand, there were many observants who believed that the people of Bangladesh never liked India's interference in Bangladesh politics, and that anti-India public sentiment in Bangladesh goes beyond politics. Because there was this expert who told Al Jazeera in a video, said that the border is just not, when he said that it goes beyond politics, it means that it's just not that. The border killing, unresolved water sharing of 53 rivers, including Teesta, trade deficit, all play roles to this boycott. And there's some data as well, which is according to human rights organization Odhikar, which says around 1276 Bangladeshis have been killed and 1,183 been injured by India's border forces since 2010. Then there are these decades-old unresolved water sharing agreements for 53 transboundary rivers, in addition to Bangladesh's massive trade deficit with India. So you think these are the things that have actually snowballed into this sort of reaction, and the common people are actually thinking that this
Most of
it's
the things that you've listed, Anna, are not new.
yeah, yeah.
They have been a part of the problem and a part of the bilateral conversations for decades. So it's
True.
not the first time that we are seeing a border issue or a border problem. It's not the first time that we are seeing that we are yet to find a solution to the Tista question. So these are ongoing conversations that does not change how people work on the ground between the two countries. What happens is, and when the change happens or used to happen or happened, was when there was a change in government.
Yeah.
Every time the BNP used to be in power, relations between the two countries soured. And whenever Sheikh Hasina's government would come to power, we would have less insurgency in the northeast. We would have more people who are brought to account when it comes to the insurgents who would find safe havens in Bangladesh. Incidents at the border would reduce, although not drastically, because remember, in Bangladesh, the refugee crisis, no matter what
Yeah.
the politics of it, is played out over here or there, religion aside, they're primarily not insurgents. They're not terrorists. This is not the India-Pakistan border. Remember, these are economic refugees. Because we have not signed the convention of the Refugee Convention, we don't recognize these problems. But they're economic refugees. They used to be. Bangladesh was in a very, very bad shape economically, and so people would turn to India to come earn and sometimes not even stay, go back.
Yeah.
They used to just cross the border to earn 10, 20 rupees and go back. Illegal immigration might be a problem and is a problem, but the reasons for the immigration was hardly religious, hardly trying to take over the land, or for religious purposes. It was primarily economic. Having said that, over here, when we are looking at the crisis, the kind of crisis that we're looking at, again, going back to whether if one can afford to not have India, whether if BNP comes to power or not, even during BNP's time, they really needed India for all the basic necessities.
Of course.
So, by and large, people in Bangladesh are quite pro-India. They're not anti-India. They might have, some of them might question some policies, some of them might question certain ways and how things are changing. Some statements that some politicians make in India in the border areas, also to do with the CAA-NRC rulings that could impact Bangladesh.
Yes.
Adversely, because their Muslim population who illegally immigrated or who illegally came into India will not be counted here, and they don't want them back. So it's a real situation and issue there. Having said that, you see, in around 2019, we had a huge problem with tomatoes that we were banning export of. And that had become a huge problem for Bangladesh because they couldn't, India was their main source. And it had become such a huge issue that it was taken up at the Prime Minister's level. And when Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina came visiting to India, this was one of the issues that she raised and that she spoke about. That's how big, small things that if India stops could impact their lifestyle, way of life. So I don't see a lot of hatred. I do see maybe tensions. And because of those tensions or those reasons for not being happy with India, I see that the BNP could use that and mobilize crowd.
Because, Geeta, there is this also, remember we discussed the Bangladesh elections in detail in one of the episodes, but the thing is that the BNP did not participate. So if you actually want to gauge what people of Bangladesh feel, they're not given the options. the party is not there, the opposition is not there. So anyway, if Hasina is actually, winning by a whopping majority, around 233 seats out of the total, forgetting. So you are not getting the entire picture, right, of what the Bangladeshis really want. And that is why the question that maybe the mood of the nation, the mood of the Bangladeshis are not really in favor with the Indians probably. And that's why I asked the question. And also, to add to that, the allegations of India's, this rhetoric of this is an internal matter, this is an internal matter, and the alleged India's interference in Bangladesh's politics, and the unqualified support, so-called, that the opposition has also been leveling against the ruling party and India. You think that also holds any ground? Uh, like India actually interfering and wanting, I mean, of course, India would want Sheikh Hasina to be in power, but to what limit can a country, really influence another country's elections? Case in point being these two.
See, I don't think there is any direct interference as such into the elections of Bangladesh, but is the administration, is the Indian government supporter of a Sheikh Hasina regime? I mean, officially, whether they say it or not, as a journalist covering the beat, I'd say that yes, not just supporter. There is a very important and a very strong relationship that both of them have cultivated, because it is to both of their advantages. Over here, irrespective of which the government is, they would want to engage Sheikh Hasina. This is not Modi administration. Even Manmohan Singh administration was engaging Sheikh Hasina and did not want that government to go. But should that mean that we should be okay with an election where the opposition boycotts and sits out of the election itself? Not really. Because no matter what, if this trend continues, there will be mobilization by the opposition and things could crumble. Like we just spoke about Turkey. Once there is mobilization and people think that, well, she might be great for the country because she has done well.
Yes.
She has done good by her own country when it comes to the economy, taking on various administrations, not really cowing to, any forces outside thinking for her country's national interests, so on and so forth, which is why a lot of the West also question her, but they also question the means with which she's coming to power. And should this control be allowed, or should this continue? So if this continues, Anna, I suppose there will be more people will start questioning whether if this is not just viable, whether if this is a democracy at all or not.
Yeah.
And it will be a fair question to ask.
Yeah.
So while for India it is very important that we have a government. It's a near neighbor. We have an immediate neighbor. So we have a government that does not impact adversely India's security situation. And in that, Sheikh Hasina is critical.
Yes.
But also, it's for the people of Bangladesh to decide whether if they want to engage India. It's for the people of Bangladesh to decide whether if they want a government to continue with the opposition continuing to boycott. I don't think boycott serves the purpose of the opposition or the country. You need to have people who question the government and the powers that be. And so, again, it's internal to Bangladesh. They will have to decide. If you ask me about the people of Bangladesh, as of now, I don't see the tide turning very adversely against India. I don't see them not thinking badly of India, because it's not just food. Even for medical purposes, Bangladeshis look to India. How many Bangladeshis come to India on an annual basis just to get the treatment? So we are actually a very massive connecting hub. It's almost like and the distance is also such where if you're in a far-flung area in India and you need treatment, you go to the urban centers. For them, this is an urban center. It is a satellite, urban center for them to be connected to, rather than think of flying unless and until you have the money to the West.
Yeah.
So India provides this region stability of development partnership, stability of economic partnership and connectivity, and the stability of treatment, basic supplies, stability of medical supplies. COVID-19 proved that. So there's a lot between India and Bangladeshis know that. So the India Out campaign is not as big and as massive as you saw in the Maldives. Although there also, when I traveled, Anna, people over there also were not very happy with the India Out campaign.
I mean, there was
because
this
they
video
had
that
much to lose. And it's not just tourism. They said the same thing, that we need India for treatment.
Yeah.
Only people with money go to the West or go to Singapore or, other countries. Otherwise, they look at India. They're all traveling to India for treatment. All the hospitals over there are run by Indians. So it's a massive story of how there is a lot of heartburn, and people are questioning how India behaves. Yet they know how important India is, and they want to stay connected to India. India is engaging them positively, but we have certain quarters within those countries who say, well, this is what India actually truly is, so we need them out. Let's be self-reliant. But in the process of self-reliance, countries like the Maldives choose to depend on China. Bangladesh, because the opposition has not come to power, and it's Sheikh Hasina, balances and is working with China and with India.
True. I mean, like on the flip side, if you see, you can blame that India is intervening. But the BNP is getting so-called bolstered, and there's a China intervention as well in their
Sri
politics.
Lanka, Nepal, the Maldives, Bangladesh, Myanmar, you name it, the region.
Yeah. And since we're on the China front, so when we were discussing Maldives, you remember it was just the beginning of when they had said that we want the troops out. So the friction was about to, it was on the surface, and we said, and you said that Maldives can actually not afford to, sever ties with India, because economically it will be, like you mentioned all the points, it will be huge. The impact will be huge. But now, having said that, in the course of 2-3 months, like what we have seen, how the matter has inflated, and how ultimately the Indian troops they have withdrawn from the archipelago, and now China has very much made inroads into Maldives, and China has been helping Maldives in many ways, so-called to assist the island nation in dealing with water crisis, or be it infrastructural development and environmental protection work. So yes, I understand that in Maldives it was the ruling government at odds with India, but here, so the decisions were under their control, but here it's not. It's the opposition. So you think if actually matters, start boiling and gets inflated to a certain position, very hypothetical. So you think this is like a very right point for China to intervene and so-called make inroads into Bangladesh as what it did.
But Anna, they're already there, which is what I'm saying. Sheikh Hasina, if this was the opposition, if Khaleda Zia or BNP would have come to power, then you would have seen China sweeping into Bangladesh. But because it is Sheikh Hasina, there is no way that even an India Out campaign, which has not succeeded because Sheikh Hasina has thrown the India Out, Boycott India campaign right out the window, saying that if you really want India out, first burn the saris of that your wives own. It might sound very gender specific, and sexist maybe even. But the fact is that what she's trying to say is this, that you own a lot of Indian products. doing away and burning one shawl will not take India out of Bangladesh. The burning campaign that happened in the Maldives did not take India out of the Maldives.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the hospitals that run are still run by Indian doctors. Even now, there's a huge Indian contingency that's present there. The troop withdrawal was also a false narrative that the opposition had built, that there are these many thousand soldiers. There weren't.
Yeah, it was just
A very bare skeletal number to man those helicopters and aircraft. And they were only sent back after there was a civilian team that India sent. So there is a civilian team that has taken over to operate the helicopters and aircraft, which means we still are operating within the Maldives. And despite all the projects and deals that China has recently, there are so many just in the month of March that I was looking at, and it just went on and on. Bridges, dams, roads, hospital, some development infrastructure.
Yeah.
It is going on and on. So there is a lot. And then they now also have a defense partnership agreement. So that's massive. But yet, we still are important. We still are there. And when it comes to debt relief, they're looking at India again because China has not come to their rescue.
Yeah.
Like it happened in Sri Lanka. So I don't see, and here we're talking about a government that was pro-China and came to power.
Yeah.
I mean, a party that was pro-China and came to power and is now is in government. In Bangladesh, the opposition is driving the agenda but has not won the election because they did not fight it.
Yeah.
And Sheikh Hasina is still there. So you will still see a balancing act because Sheikh Hasina manages her relations with India but also has very
with
strong
China.
ties with Beijing.
Yeah.
And that's how any country should be, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
It might be to our discomfort, but think of that country. Nepal tried to, but every time it all depends on the party that is pro-India or pro-China, which is why they completely take a U-turn every time the government changes, which does not help the country and it does not help the neighborhood. Bangladesh has managed that quite well. And India has to manage its relations with Bangladesh irrespective of BNP or not. In fact, if anything, we should know that should there be a BNP government, it should never come to a point where they say India out, or it should never come to a point where they say China in completely.
Yeah. No, so you are saying that if they come to power, they will never say or should?
No, that we should engage them to the extent that they should not.
Okay.
Will they not? They will absolutely say India out, and they will absolutely say boycott India, and they will throw most of the ministers, will have
but
quite
economically,
a
of
few
course,
cases
it will take a hit, right?
Yes. So
if
then
this
what?
happens.
Yeah. What does a country do? We need Bangladesh as much as Bangladesh needs us for security reasons. It's not like we need them to provide us with supplies, but for security reasons. When BNP comes, it becomes a space for all these insurgents to grow.
Yeah.
And then Northeast has we have a real difficult security situation at hand when it comes to the Northeast and East of India. So I suppose India would want to avoid that. And if that's the case, you need to engage both sides. At this point in time, it doesn't look like the BNP is willing to listen. And right now, I think it's just come to a place where we see so much, we see like we've sided so much with Sheikh Hasina.
Yeah.
With no criticism, if anything, only lauding and praising her and congratulating her on her wins. So I don't see the BNP taking very kindly to the posture that India has held.
So from what I can now understand is, for now, China cannot be that alternative that it's trying to possess.
Not in Bangladesh.
Not in Bangladesh, yeah. So now as we conclude, Geeta, we have touched upon this earlier as well, about India's international standing. And if we specifically look at the past since 2014, we must say, that this geopolitical prowess sort of inflating. We had this G20 presidency, of course, that sort of cemented this belief in us. But in case of India's relations, specifically with its neighbors, we have mentioned Maldives, China, sorry, not China, but Maldives, Sri Lanka, Nepal, now Bangladesh. We are forgetting Canada, the Justin Trudeau Rao, Nepal, with sort of a pro-China leader coming to power. You think with these factors in mind, do you see India's foreign policy shaping in a different way now? Like it's sort of different, and probably it should be different to how it's approaching its neighbors, because there is probably a dormant, probably somewhat right off the bat, that there is an anti-India sentiment that is simmering. If we can actually talk about
Anna,
that.
that's a lot of people are seeing it in the context of the present, and they say, well, wow, India's doing great in terms of how it's reacting to certain countries. And in certain places, they say, well, there's so much of hatred in the neighborhood. Why? But to me, I see it as a continuum. There has been a cycle. With the Maldives, it has been a cycle of loving India, hating India, then loving India again and hating India. It has been a cycle forever, irrespective of the Modi administration. Sri Lankan government, we've had our highs, our ups and downs. We've had the LTTE crisis. We fought it together during the Manmohan administration. In fact, it was the UPA government that had come together and ensured that Mahinda Rajapaksa has the support to do away with the LTTE, and that continues. But do we see the devolution of powers for the Tamilians in Sri Lanka? We are yet to see that. President Ranil Wickremesinghe, who was former Prime Minister, has come out and said that, gave those assurances.
Yeah.
But those ups and downs, the monitoring of the Tamil community in Sri Lanka, or maybe the Hindu minorities in Pakistan, is something that India watches and does very closely. In terms of positioning, I don't know whether if I can draw a comparison. We've had cases in the past also where there has been interference, and India did not stand up very strongly to those. But we've not had a case such as the Niger killing, or Gurpatwant Singh Panoon's murder for hire charges against India, the allegations. And so India has behaved in a very strong manner, has come out very strongly. If Shiv Shankar Menon was the National Security Advisor, or even the Foreign Secretary, and if we had Pranab Mukherjee as the Foreign Minister, would he have taken things lightly and taken things lying down? I don't think so. So would India have acted tough? India acted very tough during the nuclear crisis. India acted very tough during some of the worst attacks that we've had. People say that, but we still allowed Pakistan. So there have been attacks even during this government. There's no retaliation where we bombed the daylights out of Pakistan, right? By this government or by the past. There was a surgical strike that took place. Who's to say that, the past governments have not responded in the same weight and measure, only that it's never publicized, when things happen at the border. I'm just saying that a lot has changed, but a lot is the same. Diplomacy, to quite a large extent, is a continuum. And you cannot say that this government has done things that the past governments have not done. Maybe it is known to public more now than it was back then. But yes, in terms of positioning, taking a stand, I see that the Indian administration now takes a stronger position, far stronger stand, and does not budge very easily from that stand. And that's a good thing. It's a good thing because India is rising and India is showing that power. But did our erstwhile leaders not show power or were weak and feeble? Not really. I've seen them work very strongly. The only difference was that there were no videos that were being relayed and being then made viral.
Yeah.
That's
So you
the
mean
only
the
difference.
optics are now stronger?
Optics are really, really,
Really strong now. Yeah.
Back then, they also had the backbone to take some issues up with the West,
Yeah.
and this government also does.
Yeah.
Situations are different,
Yeah.
circumstances are different, and what we see today, maybe we've not seen with many of the past administrations, maybe some, but many of the past administrations. And so there is hardly any comparison that one can draw. Like the Russia-Ukraine war. Would India have, if this were not this government and some other government, would India have stopped taking oil from Russia or stopped engaging Russia? How can
not.
India stop engaging Russia?
Yeah.
So, there's no comparison over here. Would India's position on Israel Hamas have been different from what it is today?
No.
I don't think so. In fact, if anything, I would think there would have been a stronger statement on Palestine sooner than later.
Because
So we don't know what
India has been obviously believing in the two-state theory
Yes.
since
Yes, forever.
forever. Yeah.
So we don't know. These are all assumptions that people
Yeah.
make, assuming that, okay, this government is stronger and therefore past governments didn't do it. I don't think so. But I do think that, yes, they've come across as a very strong government with the position that they take, and they do not budge easily. They don't, crumble under pressure.
Yeah. Also, I must add access to fake news. I think that's actually. I mean, I can't give you the data,
But that has nothing to do with foreign policy per se, Anna.
No,
That's a
Geeta,
problem through and through.
No, you should.
It permeates every aspect of our society and life today.
The kind of messages that I get from my family group, in the family group, the kind of messages that my father forwards me.
Yeah, but that has to do with any kind of news.
No, of course, but I'm saying
Political
for
news, and you have to
foreign
keep telling them.
diplomacy.
You have to keep telling this is not what happened.
Yes, precisely.
Please. So, which is why I said, please read the
Please read,
papers.
yeah. Like, for example, I'll just give you a small snippet. I took a cab from Lajpat Nagar to my office, and I was having this chat. I usually have these chats with my cab drivers.
The drivers.
Yeah, yeah. And he said that, Madam, aap batao, you tell me, will you be voting for this government? I said, why should I disclose it? But then we sort of started discussing about politics in general. And then somehow he said that, there was this entire presidency thing that happened. It was such a spectacle. And I was like, yeah, of course, I agree with that. I mean, that was a spectacle. But then he said that, now for the past 10 years or 8 years, I've been believing in India's foreign diplomacy so much more. Like when Prime Minister visits Australia, it becomes a spectacle. We never saw this happening with our past Prime Ministers when people were hooting and chanting Prime Minister's name. So that means that the current government is doing something, really right to gain such traction and such prominence in a international standing. So I said,
no, but I think on that front, it is true.
Yeah.
Your people need to know what you're doing and what you're delivering. So somewhere down the line, it does help. You're a politician. You're a man in public life. You have to show what you're doing, and why you're in a particular country. I think what this government has managed to do very well is use that soft power diplomacy. You see, that aspect has been captured so well that it resonates. It percolates down to the common man here in India, where they see, the leadership travel, and then the leader being seen, being welcomed and being heard.
Yeah. Yeah.
not just by the Indian diaspora, but by the Western leaders, by the Eastern leaders. The fact that the world leaders are listening to the Indian Premier today is something that is seen today.
Exactly.
And that really helps. So I think they have really captured that aspect of being seen.
Also, he took his mobile and made me watch a video which was about the Russia-Ukraine war and how he said that Prime Minister Modi ne to war rukwa di so that he could
So that's,
get the...
again, that's a problem. Over here, that's not something that has been said.
Yeah.
Although, yes, many claims have been made, but the foreign minister in an interview to us clarified that there was a safe passageway that was given, which is what we discussed last time when I said war nahi rukwaya. But yes, conversations took place for a safe passageway for Indian students to be evacuated from Kharkiv.
Yeah, right, Geeta. I think beautifully explained, and I'll make sure that this gets clipped out and get viral, and so that I can share it with my family group.
Yes, tell your father
Yeah.
that certain things you have to accept when there is an achievement. But when people twist things to make something an achievement, it's just unacceptable.
Yeah, true. So I think we were on Bangladesh. It was quite a digression, but I think not a digression, but I think it was very much important for us to talk about it.
I think what Bangladesh story really does is, because in itself it's not really a story that you can discuss without understanding the dynamics of the region. So this Bangladesh story has put the entire regional politics into perspective, which is great.
Great,
from the Maldives to Nepal to Bangladesh to Myanmar. You know it all.
Yes. And I'm sure the listeners and the viewers must have learned a lot, like I did. Always I do. So just lastly, you think this campaign is not going to hold?
No, even if it does, it will not sustain for long. It cannot sustain itself because they've not come to power. If you can sustain it only if you come to power. Sheikh Hasina is the Prime Minister, and she's going to really ensure that. She already has. She's asking them to burn the saris. I don't think the BNP leadership, who also travel a lot to India for their treatments and everything else, I don't think anybody's right now ready to burn anything Indian. Whether it's food, spices, clothes, or relations. Not ready to burn that bridge right now.
Well said. So thank you so much, Geeta. I think we'll put an end to this conversation, and it was lovely speaking to you, and congratulations again to your win. And I hope Geeta's World also wins someday.
I hope so too. Please start writing, liking, put us up there so we can win only for the hard work that we put in. And I hope you really enjoy what we discuss over here. It's some serious work that we do, a lot of research by Anna. less by me.
I do need
but
that.
Yes, I hope that you enjoy our podcasts and like, share your comments, give us feedback so that people around, and share a word or two about the podcast so that more people come in to listen and to watch us.
And also follow us on Instagram, Facebook. You can get to see the posts that we release, the snippets that we release, so that, like me, you can share those along on your so-called respective groups. So also the number, I'll remind you of that. The number is 8588966996. And there's an email ID, which is pods@indiatoday.com. So do leave in your comments. On Spotify also, there's a provision to leave in your comments right below the episode that you're listening us on. So do leave your comments on YouTube, everywhere, write to us, and we'll be happy to include those in our episode. Thank you so much.